Hello again to everyone. Hello, welcome to another ESK8 UK Live Show. We're joined here today with Karen, kazperstan. How's it going, Karen?
I am good. How are you?
Doing well. We know each other well, but I feel like there's a lot of things we could talk about, and there's some good conversations to be had, and good conversations to be had with a lot of people here to view it as well. So we're going to be looking at the comment section, seeing those who pop in and say hi, some regulars, some new folks. It'll be good to draw some questions from there too. But of course, I've got some questions of my own. Um, but usually on the show, I feel like we normally do like what's your history and things like that, and your history's kind of been said in different places too. I remember authentic was a thing not too long ago too, so I mean, you can give a little bit of a nutshell of that, but I've got some questions about what you're up to now, so I'll give you
Sure.
a chance to speak.
Yeah. In terms of boarding history, as you can tell by my accent, I'm from the UK. So I started mountain boarding when I was younger. I think I was about like 13, 14 when I discovered it. I'd been normal skateboarding before that. But then mountain boarding was kind of the sport I truly fell in love with. Um, Shout out to Bugs Boarding and Ride the Hill, those guys. I think Ride the Hill unfortunately doesn't exist anymore. And that's where I did most of my riding. Which is kind of an evolution from that is I moved about a lot for work. Took my mountain board with me as much as I possibly could. And then when I moved to Canada during pandemic, I got very bored and decided to put a motor on the back of my mountain board. And that was my first ever e-skate. It was terrible. It went like 5 kilometers and barely had any speed to it at all. But it got me hooked on the idea of a motorized e-skate, especially in Toronto with our beautiful waterfront trails and stuff. I just wanted to go far, and I don't have the stamina or the legs to do it with a standard kickboard. So yeah, I switched out to e-skate, and then slowly got involved with Toronto e-riders, and they got me involved in racing. So that's a TLDR of it.
Yeah, so I mean, you own quite a few boards now. You've gone through quite a few boards, and every board's kind of different with its different kind of setup and whatnot too. So I think a cool direction we could take this with Suki here with us as well. I have to mention that. Suki, the co-host here, if there's any cool questions or anything that pop up in chat, she'll be sure to pop them up on the screen for us and whatnot too. So thank you to Suki for all of this. But I kind of want to go through a little bit of your inventory and what you have now and what you kind of use them for and what they're kind of good for or why you bought them in a sense. Because when you first buy your first board, you don't really think of much, and then you start to look at specific things and why you buy them and things like that. So, is there anything interesting in your inventory right now of boards, and why maybe you would pick that one up versus another board?
Yeah, I still have my Meepo Hurricane. That was my first big board that I ever bought. I started on the Backfire G2, which was because I was just like, I just want a skateboard that has a motor on it. That I ran it into the ground. It was literally disintegrated by the time I finished riding it. I'm one of those people that I will ride until it breaks, and then I will get something new. So yeah, G2. Then I had the Meepo Hurricane. I keep the Meepo Hurricane around and kind of mildly well maintained because I like to lend that out to people as like a beginner intro board. So my buddy Josh currently has that board and he uses it to get around the city with, and he's never been on any type of board at all ever. He's never snowboarded, never skateboarded, nothing, but that was his introduction to electric skateboarding was that board. So it's a really good entry level beginner board. I also have an Atlas Pro 2-wheel drive. That was my race board for the longest time. It's unfortunately dead in the water now, so good memories, but she's done.
Is there a chance of revival on that? Is it just a battery issue,
Yeah.
or?
Battery replacement and probably a motor replacement is in the works. So hopefully we can revive it one day. But that was the board that got me into racing. Just 2-wheel drive Atlas Pro with DKPs. I know me and Brett have always been encouraging of like, you can race anything, just try. Like, you don't have to go out and buy these $5,000 expensive race boards. They are great, and if you want to, like, racing is your thing, sure, but you can race anything. Atlas Pro 2-wheel drive is proof of that. Did it for many years. And I also currently have a Radium Mach 1, which is my current cruiser, get around the city board. Beautiful ride. I absolutely love how smooth it is and how fast it is. And then also, yeah, the Stooge V5 for my race board, which has been pretty new, recent build, DIY. First stood on it at ESK8 this year. Literally, we put it together a day before it had to ship out. And I was telling Suki earlier, it finally got put together. And I took it outside to Ian, who was coming to pick it up, to drive it all the way to Vegas. And I was like, yep, it goes forward. Okay, bye. See you in Vegas. And, and then I had to learn to ride and deal with all the stoogeness of it at ESK8. I learned by smashing my face into the floor about 3 times, but we got there in the end. So
Yeah, so I mean, you can evolve through and really find yourselves getting into different boards and then eventually into a racing setup. And I feel like there's a lot to be said with a lot of that. Maybe we'll get into that in the future, but there was a good comment that came up from Suki. The X-Way X1 is quite a good for beginner racing. Yeah, so like a lot of these boards, would you agree that, you know, I found, especially with X-Way, as I'm sitting here wearing their branding on me, that their quality of has gotten to the point where they can take them around a lot of these kind of race events that we're seeing now in North America.
yeah, especially the ones that are sectioned like Eastgate Con with advanced sports, sportsman and novice. I wouldn't say you'd be qualifying into the advanced or pro class with the standard board that you could buy off MLR's. Kind of getting there with Meepo, but they're good enough to get yourself into the rookie leagues, right? And it's like when you think about Formula One and karting and stuff, they're the go karts of the Formula One cars, essentially. So it's ride what you have and get good with it, get comfortable with it. Don't expect to be qualifying into pro class with this. Brett is an anomaly in that side of things, but it is possible. But the vast majority of us probably won't. They're great to learn with because a lot of racing is not just getting comfortable with your board, but also learning racing lines and controlling your throttle, learning when to brake and everything. So, and you can do that on any board. So, yeah.
Yeah. So when you first started getting into racing or had an interest in racing, what board were you on and what kind of things did you discover? Maybe that you knew that were coming or you didn't know that were coming when it came to like balance and throttle
Mm.
control and things like just riding the board itself.
Yeah, we started our version of Intro to Speed in Toronto when I was still on the Backfire G2, I believe. Yeah, it was like 2
I
years on the
remember
Backfire
ripping
G2.
that board around the old go-kart like line
Yeah,
of a track. Yeah.
yeah. Wasn't great. I really struggled to turn it because I'm very light. I'm like, for our European friends, I'm 8 stone, 55 kilograms. I think it's like 119 pounds or something. Very light, even with my gear on. So the stock bushings and stuff that come with that, they're made to keep you alive on the street and not wobble out. So it was hard for me to make those turns. And also, I didn't know racing lines, so I was also learning about that.
But I feel like there's a good conversation to be had there because it, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, is that something you still deal with to this day when it comes with racing, is your weight distribution and just having enough weight to throw off the edge of the board at certain speeds?
Yeah, a lot of it's also technique, right? I know you've been teaching me to crouch and actually get my weight down
Yeah,
and use
but
it, but yes, it is a big factor. Some of the bigger guys, when I stand on their boards, I literally, even if I was to completely lean off and grab the edge and pull it, it does not turn for me because I am just too light, and that's the nature of it. You do have to build your board to you. Even simple things like switching out the bushings makes a big difference. Getting the right kind of truck setup. So for me on the streets, DKPs are fantastic, and I'm not likely to wobble out because I'm so light that I'm not putting a lot of weight on those back trucks, and DKPs are actually quite stable for me because I'm lighter. But for a heavier guy like yourself or whatever, it can make it a little bit more difficult to ride my boards because they are so loose for you. So yeah.
yeah, I mean, I recently have tried your stooge board, and it's totally doable, but it takes a lot of ankle control, and
Yeah.
it's, you know, that's good for me right now. I'm going through my recovery to make my ankles stronger, but you know, it you could tell that your setup is definitely made where it doesn't take much weight to be off the edge, and you know. for those who don't know, you can verify this or correct me if I'm wrong. Morgan Brady out of Chicago, his body set is kind of the opposite of yours. He's got a lot of mass with him, and he could just very subtly lean off the board in whatever direction, really demand that board around. Where I
Yeah.
feel like you just are on the opposite spectrum of that and really struggling to find a way to just get comfortable in some corners.
Yeah, we're finding out different techniques, like watching guys and like people like Dina, Taz, Josh, speed wobbles. We're all kind of the lighter side of the races, and just for me being with them and watching them and how they race has helped me a lot with learning where I can use what weight I have to my advantage as much as possible. Um, but yeah, a lot of the bigger guys are just like, lean, board go we. Whereas a lot of us lighter people are like, okay, I have to crouch and like really wrench on this thing. So
Yeah. Now, to go into it, let's say that, you're just like a casual watching the show right now, casual rider, and you're kind of interested in racing. Let what was your perspective going into like your first race or even your second race event that maybe felt more serious, and like what's your perspective that you can give some people who are interested in racing but just have no idea like what to expect?
yeah, enjoy it for what it is. I very much I'm a person that learns by doing, so I never had any expectations of like podium or getting anywhere with it. It was more like, okay, this is my first race. I'm going to learn as much as I can. I'm probably going to learn by crashing. That's just the way I do things. And yeah, just community it is everything for this, right? So you're not going to know what you're doing wrong unless you talk to people, or if you need help with something. Like I was struggling a lot with the stoogeness of stooge boards, and just being able to talk to people, get my remote set up for me. Thanks to Reggie and JP and all those guys for helping me with that. Yeah, go in with an open mind of it's a learning experience for your first race. Everyone, even Mario, has said it many times. It's like your first race, you're probably going to come dead last, and that's okay. Like it's part of learning. And yeah, just ask people around you and try and learn as much as you can.
Yeah, Suki just had a question kind of popping back to the last topic. Do you think there should be weight classes within e-skate racing?
It's been talked about a lot. It's one of those things where it's such a niche sport. There isn't a lot of us. We already struggle to segregate for pro, intermediate, and novice because there's just not enough of us that regularly can attend these races. It would be nice in the future for sure to have a way of sorting classes so that the races are more fun, because it's no fun being a novice thrown against pros and then getting lapped, right? It can become a bit dangerous at that point if you're in their way, essentially, and no one wants to feel like the person that's in their way. So having these novice, intermediate, beginner things like at ESK8 helps a lot. My most favorite race ever was at ESK8 this year in the novice class. I made it to the finals. And just racing with everyone that is the same speed as you and actually feeling like you can have a battle is incredible. It's the best thing about racing. But weight class, I'm not sure. It really depends on how much does that actually affect our riding and our ability to get into pro class, because you see guys like Taz going up against guys like Morgan and they are competitive with each other. So it's
Yeah.
hard to tell if weight makes a difference or not.
Yeah, I feel like there's a good conversation there to be had when it comes to like, what is the structure of the racing that we do, and, how should it be broken down? And, in most other sports too, like basketball players, they're tall guys. F1 racers are not big guys, so like they're usually short. So, maybe there is like an optimal body type or something like that, but then you're going to have these outliers like Taz. He's a little bit shorter, but he can really grind into some corners and get that board around. So, should the scene be based on it being fun or accessible or worthwhile versus like legitimate or like
Yeah.
actually racing and like who actually is the best type thing?
Yeah, I mean, we're at the point where it's not really an industry, but I'm going to call it an industry. We're at the point in the industry of this where we may have to start making those decisions. But we're also at the point where it's like there's not enough of us, and we need to encourage more people to join at the novice level. So getting kids involved and all this stuff, and having people grow through it so that there is a future of the sport. And segregation of talent may harm that, right? Because it's like you suddenly go from 30 people being able to race to suddenly you've now limited it to 5 people. So
Yeah, so I
it's a
mean,
hard choice to make.
yeah, I feel like this is where, we're kind of forced to become diverse, and there's certain competitions that are not necessarily going to be like the top pro elite best of the best, and it's going to be more like a, hey, everyone's going to be racing type thing.
Yeah.
Kind of like ESK8 tried to do both, but then it's just kind of turned into it kind of being both, but more focused on the pro level side of things, and it's, I don't know.
But
So I don't know.
ESK8 still does a very good job at encouraging novices to come along and just try, because there is that novice class, right? And it's just based on where you qualify. And it's one of those events where it, because of the nature of the expo around it, a lot of people attend. So you can fill up those different categories. It's not just racing; it's an event and an expo and a group ride and community meetup sort of thing. Something a lot of the other races where they're just race focused struggle with is getting that amount of people to turn up, because there's just not a lot of people racing right now. So yeah, more encouragement on the novice level for sure. And Joe's crew and Mo doing the Mohawk races right now, where it's just a spec board. You just turn up. You don't have to bring anything with you apart from your equipment. You just get on the board and race. Perfect for novices. It's like the equivalent of going to a go-kart day and not bringing your own go-kart. You just turn up and try it. That is
Yeah.
perfect for beginners and novices.
Yeah, I mean that's diversity really hard at play,
Yeah,
and that was a question that Suki just popped up in there. Board type based racing. So to have all the boards be exactly the same. When I saw that concept come out, when Mo was
perfect.
doing that with support for some racers, I was like, that's actually brilliant, because it's we've said for a long time that some of the best racers out there can be put on the poorest of boards and perform pretty decently up against some bigger ones, provided that gap isn't tremendous,
Yeah, I
right?
mean, you're an example of that, right? Like you were thrown on an Atlas Pro and then made it into pro class in ESK8, which the vast majority of people who ride those boards are down in sportsman and novice. So
Yeah. And
yeah,
I mean, on the same token, like when it comes to week stuff, that was a couple of years ago, but we do our intro to speed sessions, and I'm out there on a ripple showing people lines on the track, and the ripple only goes
30.
25, 30 kilometers an hour, right? But I'm like full pinning it through corners and stuff. And, some people are like, how do you do that? And I'm like, well, you just kind of hang on,
Yeah.
you know? So, it's really cool to see those, like that competition, the Mohawk boards having, spec racing. That's, I think that's a really cool concept.
I think it's an incredibly important step for this sport to advance as well, is to have events like that, but in different cities. Right now, it's only LA, right? And I really hope that other cities are hosting intro to speeds or have managed to find a track like we have 3S here in Toronto can do something like that on a regular as well. Because being able to get younger people who can't afford to buy $5,000 boards because they haven't even started working yet or whatever, learning to race at a young age where they're still bouncy and they can get back up a bit easier, is the future of the sport. It's the way every single racing event ever works. Like go-karting to Formula One, they all start as kids. Mountain biking, they all start as kids. Olympic skateboarding, they all start as kids. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I feel with time, everything will progress, but we keep saying that as well. So it's kind of cool. I feel like this year the racing scene has developed a bit, but it has come with a little, a bit of their own kind of heartaches as well. We haven't seen like this massive boom, and we even seen recently SoCal Legend and his Apex race seemed to have been canceled because he only had two registrants, and that's kind of like we organize our own competition, the mini PB games. We see that too, with registrations coming in very late, or just like desperate last measure attempts to be like, oh, I'll do
Yeah.
it,
But I will
right?
say Joe's
So
next event filled out completely, so good job.
yeah, okay, perfect. So with the right dedication,
Yeah.
it can be done, right? And we've seen it happen time and time again. And there's a great comeback story right there. So
Yeah.
Yes, Suki's got the comment. Maybe one day we will have Eastgate heels racing, so this gal can dream.
Hey, I've been looking for an extra event to add for Eastgate and mini games. Maybe it's that.
Yeah, funny shoe race.
Yeah, funny shoe
Anything,
race.
anything but sneakers. ABS race.
It has to be shoes though, no bare feet.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's actually a good question. What would you like to see next when it comes to e-skate racing? And then maybe we'll jump on a different topic about riding boards, maybe around the city. But what would you like to see changed or to come in the next year when it comes to e-skate racing?
I know I've talked about it with you a lot, but I'm a big fan of watching mountain biking coming from the UK. It's a big sport for us in the UK. A lot of the top mountain bike races sponsored by Red Bull, Rampage, and everything, they're all British. So I follow it a lot. The way they do invitationals and the way you qualify for the big races, like for instance, TEF, right, is one of our bigger, more serious races in the Eastgate EUC world. The way you would qualify for that is in your local region, because right now all of us are being forced to travel to the States, mostly West Coast, and it's very expensive. And it's the reason our registrations are so low, because you can't keep doing that when it costs 4 or 5 grand every time to just do one race and there is no prize money, or at least very little to cover those costs. So a lot of people will do one race and never come back again, and that kind of kills off the future of the sport, right? But being able to stay in your local town, city, country, have a local race that you earn points in, that then qualifies you to then go to TEF, is a lot more kind of like, well, at least it does prize money and stuff locally to then fund you to go to TEF and stuff. It's a lot more reasonable, and it's how the way the mountain biking world somewhat works is. And I think the one wheel race for the rail works like that too. You do your local regional races and then you qualify for a race for the rail.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
feel like there's something with that too, and that I feel like that's even step two and three of, like the five-step system. And the step one is what you're saying right there, like regional races. We need more people like SoCal Legend doing his Apex series and stuff and things. So then these bigger people with, corporate money and capital investment like TEF1, to be able to have some more legitimacy behind them, being like, yo, there's lots of interest. All these regional races are drawing in all these races and registrations, and they're
yeah,
making good, entertaining races at the end of the day. So, I feel like we just need more of that,
yeah.
right? But it's
Because
not
TEF
easy.
can't survive if there aren't races, right? So
Yeah,
we need local regional races that are easily accessible, don't cost 5 grand a time to get to, just to be able to feeder races, to be able to feed into these bigger races like ESK8 and TEF and everything.
yeah, and that I feel like there's certain places where that's easier done than others,
Yeah,
and it'll take a certain amount of effort or a little bit of capital to pay for the rental of the space before full registrations or whatever comes in and sponsorships, and
yeah. We all
we
know
deal with that.
insurance doesn't like us. Like Electrify had their issues this year. We've had issues with insurance too, even with the
TEF
mini
one has had
games.
issues.
TEF1, like, yeah, we need to. It's getting better because of people like TEF1 making strides in doing that, working with insurance companies on a bigger corporate level rather than just people, citizens being like, help. So yeah, they're making good strides towards that. But it's been hard. It's a fight. Every time you go to a race, appreciate how much effort has gone into getting insurance for that track, because it's very difficult.
Yeah, yeah. Suki's got a bunch of different suggestions, I believe, there for different. Oh, the Eastgate Triathlon, Belt Gear Hub Street Off Road, and the PV Triathlon, Eastgate, One Wheel EUC, RC car racing, mountain biking, dirt dirt biking, etc. That's a lot.
Yeah,
That's a lot going on. But
that's
we've
stuff
also
that.
talked about doing like endurance races, and we even
Mm,
do a version that it was done at AVS, and it may have been done at, and it wasn't done at Eastgate Con, where you have several different PEVs running in a relay race.
mm.
That's a cool thing. What are your thoughts on that when it comes to? Have you ever done one with a board? I think you have.
I did the relay racer mini games for fun
And
because
how
I
was
was supposed
that
to be
with the
working, but I
board?
was like, oops. It was fun. I like having events like that. It's another mini games is one of those events that reminds me of Oak City Shredfest a little bit, where it's more about bringing people together in the community as an introduction to racing, but on a much less intense scale, where it's like, it's just a little bit of fun and it's a 30-second track and you're with your friends and it's not that serious. Have fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like that's fun. And, it just takes a lot of effort and time to organize those things. And we need to see more of it. I just kind of want to give a little bit of a shout out to the Quebec crew as well. They're working really
Mm.
hard, especially on the EUC side of things, trying to pave that way to help with racing and getting on legitimate tracks and being involved with other events. So hopefully we see some more coming out this summer. I've heard some things through the grapevine that we'll see more of those opportunities. And one thing that we're both looking for are opportunities is to see e-skate registrations.
Mm.
Because recently we had the Accelerate race here in Toronto, and it
Shout
kind
out to
of did
Jen.
have e-skates, and then it didn't have e-skates, and we are kind of
I
like,
was the only one that was an
yeah.
EC racer, so it was kind of sad. But that race was very fun though. I ended up doing photography for it instead, so I still got to be a part of it, which was nice. And shout out to Jen and B Ryan and all those guys for organizing it. It was good fun.
Now, there's a question from Speedy Kit Kat in chat here. We all know. Hi, Cher. What has been the biggest obstacle to overcome regarding your race journey? Now, I feel like this is something you may have already overcome or not, or still overcoming.
Lots of little things. I mean, the big one was medical. I know everyone probably knows, but I am an ex-cancer patient, and I went through treatment during my starting my e-skate journey. It took a long time to recover from that. It's over 2 years of recovery, but I carried on skating throughout it, despite my doctors slapping me around the face and saying, "Please stop hurting yourself." Uh, but yeah, that was a big one. That was a lot of physical recovery. I lost all my strength and my muscles in my legs. I couldn't, like, I bent down to pick a banana up once and I couldn't get back up. That level of muscle loss, and it took a long time to get that back, and it affected my ability to race, obviously, because you use your legs a lot. But it also helped with my recovery. The doctors told me that I recovered very quickly, compared to most people, mostly because I'm young, but also because I was active and skating and just mindlessly doing things without thinking, which acted as physio. So physically getting back to strength was that. And then I still deal with a lot of mental games like throttle control and high speed on an skate. I've had a lot of bad crashes with speed wobbles, mountain boarding in the past, and in normal skateboarding and whatever. So yeah, mental blocks, getting over that fear of going fast. Figuring out throttle control is still something I deal with daily. It's still something I try and fight mentally.
Yeah, that is definitely a big thing. And if you've dealt with that before, being thrown off a board or anything like that, you do have to gain some confidence back. But one thing you were saying before with your body and your recovery, and I'm dealing with that with my broken leg, trying to get my my strength back. Would you say that, kind of pushing hard and leaning into practice sessions or even just going out riding is what really helped you kind of push over the edge, if not physically, but mentally, to be like, what, I'm going to do that again tomorrow. And it's not a workout. It's like, I kind of want to do it. Do you feel like skating really was that make or break thing for you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm also like I'm not a gym person. I do not have the mental capacity to go to a gym and just do 50 squats. It's so boring to me, and physically, mentally, I can't do it. It's so agitating going to the gym. I'm an adrenaline junkie. I need to get fit by doing things that don't make me realize I'm doing exercise. So yeah, it helped a lot.
Yeah. Now, your progression throughout that, like, as you've been getting stronger and stronger, I know we kind of develop like 1 minute tracks. There's a good question by Suki is how long was your endurance racing miles and speed, as you see it pop it up there? Like, I think one big question I would have on that kind of side of things is the amount of laps that you're able to do
Yeah.
before you either feel
Mm.
the pain or you're kind of pushing through like some endurance moments.
When I first started, I remember on the backfire, I used to be able to do like one lap, and I was like, God, my legs are cooked. That was during recovery as well, so I was really pushing it. Um, and then I realized recently when we were at TEF and also the last ESK8 Con, that it's definitely improved for sure. I can do like, because I can't remember what TEF was. Was TEF like 5 laps at the end? I can't remember what it was, but it was very, very long.
Yeah.
And by the time I finished, I was actually fine. Like I was getting through. I still had to maintain. Like you can't do 100% all the time when you're doing long distance tracks like that. Because I can't physically squat for 20 minutes. Like my legs just can't do it.
Yeah.
But it's definitely improved a hell of a lot compared to where I first started. It's a good reminder to remember to look back at what you started at, not being able to even do 30-second tracks without having to stop for 20 minutes to recover, to now being able to do like ESK8 Con where it's 3 days of racing and I'm still being able to do 5-6 laps by the end of the day. It's a big improvement.
Yeah. And I mean, I think this draws into a big segue. How do you think that's really helped you with some more like longer range rides with the e-skate when it comes to, we do our sunset cruises on Friday if you come out on e-skate, but the annual event that we do with X-Ray Canada, the Carvin Camp. So, how do you feel like there's been some progression with that too? And how do
Yeah.
you think that's kind of helped in your recovery?
Yeah, pre everything when I lived out in Europe still, I lived on bikes. So I've always had pretty high endurance. I used to do like 20-kilometer bike rides all the time. And then I obviously lost it all. So coming back and regaining that endurance was nice. I've never thankfully struggled with endurance side of things. I can go for 50-kilometer rides on a skateboard and not really notice. Mostly because I'm good at balancing my body, I guess, against. I'm relaxed. Essentially, I'm very relaxed when I'm doing those kind of rides. I'm not squatting full. Like when I'm racing, you're full squat all the time, and it's a lot on your thighs and your ass and your quads and everything. But when I'm doing long distance riding, I'm extremely relaxed. So I'm not really using those muscles as hard, so I can go for a long distance. And my feet are tiny, so I have the ability of being able to move my feet around on the board, so I don't get the vibration numbness too much. So yeah.
Yeah, I feel like that's one thing I deal with a lot too, and I understand that you can kind of relax and shift up and move around,
Yeah.
unlike a weight-based accelerating PEV like a one wheel or an EOC. You kind of like relax a little bit more, but the feet numbness, that's like
Yeah.
that's a reality. I remember the very first Carvin camp that we did. I lost feeling in my right big toe for I think several months afterwards,
Yeah. I
just
remember
because
Eric telling me he had permanent damage. Like he hasn't felt his big toe in like years because of it. So.
we just, we weren't ready. So I feel like that's a testament too. Like you got to be ready for the rides that you want to go on and the things you want to do. Like, is there anything you would recommend to anyone who's, now maybe watching this as a lighter weight rider and it could really help them on e-skate on those longer range rides?
Insoles in your shoes helps a lot. The the orthotics, squishy pads, uh, the yoke, the soft grip tape helps as well. Just getting some of that
Mm,
reduction out. A lot of the bigger boards these days, like the actual boards built for endurance, have suspension in them, like the Propel boards and whatever. So that helps a lot. But if you're riding like a friend of ours in the city, Peter, consistently does 100-kilometer rides. That's his thing, is endurance riding, and he rides a standard TKP setup, urethane wheels, I believe. He manages somehow, but be comfortable moving your feet around on the board. Get comfortable being able to ride on your front foot, but you've lifted your back foot up and you're wiggling it about a bit to get the blood flow. Same with the front foot, being able to move it around. Longboard dancing can help with that. Yeah, keep those feet moving and blood flowing.
all right. I got a question for you. What's your go-to board right now?
Currently the Radium, because it's the only one that's functioning. ESK8 Life.
Wait, you have another board there, and I was gonna say my go-to recently has been the Ripple, a
Oh,
short
the
board,
Ripple. Yeah,
a
you're right.
small board.
Yeah, I mean, I have a lovely cut on my fist and from crashing the ripple the other day. But yeah, the
Yeah,
ripple's
so
great. I love the little shortboard. We call them ripple rips. Just going for a ripple rip. I
yeah.
took it down to the city the other day and had a little run around, and it's great for going to the beach with. And yeah,
But it's like a
not
different
being.
style
I
of,
like taking those shortboards to go meet friends at a restaurant, for instance. If I don't want to take the subway or the TTC or whatever, because they're not obnoxious to take into a restaurant. Like I feel very the British guilt of being an inconvenience of taking an EUC or a big skateboard into a restaurant, especially in Toronto. There are restaurants like we don't have a lot of space. All our restaurants are tiny,
yeah, it's
so I
not
always
Texas.
no, I always feel like an ass bringing in all that equipment. So yeah, being able to take the ripple to things like that is very handy.
There's a good question from EUC Eastgate, also known as our friend Ian, I believe. What are your thoughts about using bindings to help with being too tight for your board?
Being too light.
Being too light, sorry. Tight. Huh. I
Yeah.
was like, yeah, bindings can be tight. And I was like, wait,
I
go
don't
on.
run bindings on my street board because I like being able to run away from cars if I need to. But my race board, I have a front foot strap, and it does help a lot. It's because again, my feet are tiny. Like most dudes, especially, their feet cover the entire board, and their heel and toe is hanging off the edge. I literally sit in the middle, and if I need to do a hard edge, I literally have to move my foot. And moving your foot during racing is not a great idea, especially your front foot, because then you're putting all the weight on the back. So the foot strap helps me a lot with that. I can keep my foot solid in one place, but it makes my foot essentially bigger, which is really helpful.
Yeah, so like for those who don't really understand, when it comes to e-skate racing, you kind of want to plant your feet where they're most comfortable and most effective, and you don't want to have to move them because moving them while riding is very difficult. You can see on the stooge board right there, she's pulled up the kazperstan Instagram, and you can see the front binding on her stooge board there. She does have, or the front part of her foot, it does have a binding on the front. Now, how does that really help you? Toe side turns or heel side turns, and how do you like effectively use that?
Heel side, it helps a lot. It's a very easy foot strapped, and when you heel side, you're basically it's like a snowboard binding, right? It just holds your foot and holds your weight, and you feel a lot more comfortable leaning back. Toe side, on the top of your foot, you can lean into it, and it will push the front of the board a lot more, which is very helpful. It also keeps your foot locked in place. Not locked in as in like it's never coming out, but just keeps it in the same place. So you're not. You'll notice a lot of races if you watch long like ex longboarders. Like our friend Otto moves his foot a lot because that's just longboarding the way they do it. E-skate, it's a little bit sketchy to do that because you're dealing with throttle. And if you brake whilst moving your foot, it's going to throw your balance completely off because we're dealing with different forces. So being able to plant your feet is very helpful. But being able to not be locked in and get out when you crash is also a big thing. So don't strap it down all the way so that your foot can't come out like a snowboard. You want to be able to slip out. It's only there as an assist, essentially. A lot of people are switching. I know you want the half binding that only goes halfway through and there's no end. So it's more
I'd
like a
be
C
willing to
shape.
try it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because yeah, a lot of people don't like the bindings because of the danger of snapping your ankle if you crash and not
I
be
was
able to
gonna
get
say,
out of it.
what's the elephant, the answer to the elephant in the room right now?
Yeah.
How is it to crash when that binding is done up on you and your foot doesn't come out?
I touch wood, have been very lucky with that. I ride loose bindings so I can slip out. My foot has got stuck, but I'm
How
very
was
like
that? How
hypermobile.
was
So
that when it
yeah.
happened?
For me, fine. I have hypermobile joints, so I had no damage. But unfortunately, for people like Mario, who's going through recovery from an incident like that, it can break your ankle.
Is that what did it to him?
I think so. I believe so. I'm not sure. Um, but
That's like a
yeah,
fear, like
it's a
it's
fear,
so
right? That's why you have to make a choice of like, is this aiding me and making it better for me to ride, or is it a health risk? Like you have to weigh the options.
yeah.
For me, it helps a lot because I have tiny feet and I literally cannot get over the edge of the board. So yeah,
Yeah, the third aspect of the front binding that I really love is the fact that like I do some really hard braking at times, and my feet subtly want to shift forward like
yeah,
crazy. And in my acceleration, I'm finding moments where I'm like trying to get my front foot and I'm trying to like pull it back from like just being crammed up in the front, right up into that binding. So it's like
yeah.
I'm trying to negotiate how tight it should be to keep my foot in place so my foot doesn't like fly over. I used to use a foot stop, and maybe when I pick up my board, there's something to that. So
Yep, I know a lot of people. I used when I was just racing the Atlas Pro, I used footstop over binding. I was on DKPs, so I didn't need to wrench on the board as hard. But yeah, the footstop helped me a lot, just for muscle memory, to make sure my foot was going right back in the right place. I wasn't using it to wrench on anything. I wasn't like wedging my foot under it or whatever. It was just a nice little muscle memory reminder of like, this is where my foot needs to be.
Yeah. There's a question on screen. I think a ski style binding could be safer.
Could be. If you're an old school mountain boarder, you might remember No Snow, the No Snow bindings boards, where it's just literally a toothpick with snowboard bindings on top. A lot of mountain boarders still use them.
I'm really squeamish, so I'm just gonna say look up what a ski boot brake is.
Yeah.
I think that's not recommended. Although it may give you extra control. It's almost like putting handlebars on like a skateboard. So
yeah,
maybe a bit too much, but I see where it's going. Another benefit is being able. Go ahead.
I was going to say shoes help a lot. I actually race in motorbike shoes, street style. They're downstairs. I can run and get them in a second, but they help a lot. And I think that's helped in me not break my ankle quite a few times because they got TPU armor either side, and it's got a rigid but flexy enough, because we want flex for ESK8 to be able to bend our foot. But it's rigid enough that if I smash my toe into the ground, my foot's not bending. It keeps it nice and secure. So yeah, the right shoes. I see a lot of people racing in Vans. I did for a very long time because it feels good e-skating to be able to flex your foot. But when you're in a foot binding, it becomes a whole different game, and I'd rather not break my foot. So
yeah. Ian just mentioned another use of the foot binding is being able to pop the front of the board up while street riding. Say there's a pothole or something like that. Just having enough experience to just be like, I don't want my front end hitting that, my back can roll over.
Yeah, I mean, if you watch Dylan, the Radium ESK8 guys, the manuals they do with those things are so cool.
Yeah. And then there was another question by ESK8 Windsor. Need more decks for small feet people. I think there should be a please at the end, like a PL.
Yeah. I don't think most people realize that a lot of these boards are manufactured with 80 kilogram 6 foot guys in mind, and we're not.
They're great.
We're not that. So
boards are great. All the boards now are just phenomenal. But there is a class of people that really have a difficulty riding these boards.
It's common in the longboarding world that it's the same thing, right? A lot of the longboards, if you buy them stock, they're built for the box standard 80 kilogram 6 foot guy, and then anyone that's taller has issues with it because they're too small, and anyone that's shorter has issues. And the shorter people chop their boards, so they literally chop the entire wood off the edge of the board so that it fits their feet and size. We can't do that with these skates because we've got batteries in them, but
yeah, you kind of need a lot of that space, right?
Yeah.
So we've kind of had this discussion too, but kind of the way to deal with it too is, I guess with your stooge board, can you take that back plate where you put your back foot and move it a little bit closer to the front, or you're kind of like, there's a lot of space where that battery needs to be sitting, right?
Yeah, my battery
is there a way to shorten up, or
yeah,
is there a way to shorten up a board, but you got a full length board you did?
Yeah, I don't do it with the stooge because I've just gotten used to having a wider stance, but my natural skateboarding stance is quite narrow. For the stooge, I just got used to having a wider stance, and I push my foot up against the back plate that leans up like this. And I wouldn't want to shorten it just because of the way the stooge is built. Like, it's perfect geometry for what it is, sort of thing. But for the Atlas Pro, the board was too long for me. Like, it needed to be like this much shorter for my stance. So I ended up putting, again, stealing from the longboard world, a foam wedge that just sat on the back. I don't think I have a picture of it, unfortunately, but it was just a little yoga block that I chopped up and turned into a foam wedge and then put the grip tape over it. And it just basically took my stance from being this wide to being able to have it this wide. And I could like wedge my foot up against it. And it helped with stability as well, because I was never on the back trucks then at that point either.
Yeah, I mean, not to extinguish a fire or to be like devil's advocate, But do you think there's something to be said to force people to have a wider stance because e-skate racing requires that? And if you, as you get faster and, harder into these corners, a more vertical stance is nearly impossible, and you do have to widen your feet.
It depends, because it depends on your body as well, right? Like for me, it's quite a stretch to push
But
my
you're
legs out
doing it
that
right now
far.
on the Stooge, you said, right?
I'm doing it because the Stooge is short enough. The Stooge is shorter than the Atlas Pro, so it's like it's fine for me. And the back plate kicks up just soon enough that I can wedge my foot just to the bottom of it. If you look at the taller guys, they're putting their foot up, like up top here, but I'm wedging my foot down here because it's just okay. But yeah, it really depends. I think a lot of people will like just figure it out. It's you race with what you got, right? And you just deal with it. And stances are stances. It's like
Yeah.
being goofy footed or regular footed. It's just who you are.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of it to that, but at the same time, if I was like, put my little coaching hat on here, I
Mm.
would tell them, I was like, use that space because it helps get you lower. And as you're racing and you're getting into some corners and stuff, everyone's always trying to get lower. So if you do it naturally with your stance and the board that you've got,
Yeah.
I'd say that's a blessing. So I mean,
Mm.
there's my little take on that. Do you
As
think
long
there's
as
something
it's
to that?
yeah, as long as you're not doing the splits on the board and it's throwing your balance off, because you do have like your stable
Yeah.
stance, right? And it's where you're planted. And if you go wider, you start to lose that balance. So yeah, you have to. Skateboards aren't that big that it should be a problem, but yeah, for a little kid trying to do the splits on a Stooge, it might be difficult. But
That's fun. Suki says the question of the hour. It is in classic ESK8 UK fashion. If in 115 years science fails to save us and all that is left is a book about your life, what would the title be and what would be the blurb that tells us about Karen?
Suki asked me this a couple of days ago, so I had time to think about it. And it's ow, that hurt. Do it again.
So what was the title?
Ouch, that hurt. Let's do it again.
Ouch, that hurt. Let's do that again.
It's
Okay.
a metaphor for pick yourself back up and try again. You learn by I learn by doing, you learn by doing, you learn by failing. I work in software and everything like that, and you don't get good by being born good. Like you have to try and learn to do things, and you're gonna fail. And with e-skating, it's gonna hurt. So
I like that. I like that. It's like get good, kid. Nobody was good at this. Nobody was
yeah,
born amazing. We all developed it out of passion, right?
yeah, yeah. We all
I feel
learn
like
by like everyone's guessing at this point. Like it's a very new sport and a new thing. Try
yeah, I
shit.
think that's a great turnaround for everything, right? Like cuz we started longboard, electric longboards years ago and we were just slapping electronics on longboard setups. And then now we've developed a point where we kind of have a little bit of like an e-skate. It's not just an electric longboard. You know what I'm
Very
saying?
specific now. Yeah,
Right. So I feel like, we're still developing and you got to get hurt and you got to try new things. And, we're back in that infancy stage with racing. Now that we figured out like what e-skates are and like regular builds that, you could buy off the shelf, like the XYX1 or, the
yeah,
Radium or whatever it is, right? In the racing world, we're back in that infancy trying to figure out what works best.
yeah.
Not only like the physical setups that we're building that we're riding, but the physical setups of the riders. What you should do for yourself. And we've talked about this hydrating, like even just before a regular race day, take the 24 hours beforehand and make sure you're drinking water throughout that period. So when you wake up in the morning, you don't have to drink a lot of water and pee throughout the day.
Yeah.
Right. So,
And
there's a lot to learn in this.
that's not to say go do stupid shit and break your legs. It's wear your helmet, do things sensibly,
Yeah.
but don't be afraid to try. And I'm a
Yeah.
very logical step, not step by step, but a logical like, okay, this is the next step for me to learn to get better. So I'm gonna try, and it's probably gonna hurt. So I'm gonna wear my helmet and then not break myself. But
I like that. I have a
Yeah.
question for you. What do you think, I guess, how do I phrase this? How has riding an e-skate throughout the years in not only Toronto, but all over North America and different places really help you in your everyday to day life, like your normal day-to-day life?
Mm, it helps me have goals that aren't just work, if that makes sense. I was very career orientated for a very long time, and it's very similar ideals and mindset of because I'm in media, software, media arts. It's you get good by doing. So I already had that mentality, but you get to a certain point in your career where there's like, okay, I am 11 years deep and I don't want to do this forever. So, being able to have another outlet of that similar ilk is something that tickles the fun centers in my brain that isn't work allows me to also be steady in my career as well because I don't get that itchy urge that like I'm not progressing or whatever in the career because corporate bullshit or whatever. I still get to progress at something outside of work and get good and have that challenge. So that's helped me a lot,
That's good.
even with work. So
UC Skate says, the biggest obstacle for me is the fact that I have to go to work on Monday. At what point in racing is the next step just more risk?
it's
So
true.
yeah, I mean, like I'm looking at a return to work myself, and it's one thing I'm thinking about. My job is very physically intensive and requires my body, and I've now had two major instances where I've been put out of work because of, I just physically have not been able to. So yeah, it's, where do you draw that line? Where is, fun too much fun and, a
Yeah.
hobby and, where is
That's
my priorities, right?
something I was talking with Suki with earlier. She asked me if I'd ever give up work to go be a pro e-skater if that ever became a thing. Just no. I love my job and I love my career, and e-skating is a great hobby for me. But I am quite happy to have fun in the rookie and intermediate divisions and progress against myself and in that division. But it's not a replacement for a career for me, and that's where I draw the line. Right? It's like I'm not gonna put myself in danger enough to ruin a career that I love for something else that I also love, but I am also not willing to give up the hobby I love to keep a career, if that makes sense. Like it's a balance.
Yeah, like it's still a bit of an infancy too, and I've been
Yeah,
approached by a couple of things where it's like, would you leave your day job for X, X, and X? And
yeah,
it's like, well, I mean, security is kind of everything nowadays. We don't want to talk about the economy or any political situation, but if you have like a somewhat secure job, it's not something you want to be risking on something that we have talked about is still in infancy. Like
yeah,
these races now are back at like, starting to develop, but they're in an infancy stage. But the e-skate is kind of maturing a little bit more as an industry. But, we all know how hard it is to buy and sell or to sell these things and to run retailers and things like that. And, even to be like a manager of a retailer, I'm like, I've seen so many go under. I don't want to be the next guy to be like getting the call being like, oh, sorry, the shop's closing down. You got to find another job again.
yeah,
Right. So, just kind of you got to play with the punches. But I asked that question before, and I do want to kind of put my 2 cents in what Eastgate has done for everyday things, and I feel like just overall confidence, right? Just like being able to hone that throttle, to hone that board, and carve it out, and be doing something a little bit more not crazy extreme, but then just like I'm walking down the street and I'm like, walking's nothing,
yeah. It's
like what?
I find skateboarding in general, any form of extreme sport, skateboarding for me, board sports has always been a thing. So skateboarding, snowboarding, whatever, it builds a resilience in you for dealing with bad things as well. It's like, well, I crashed once and it hurt, and then I got better because I dealt with it. I dealt with the problem, but I still tried, and it was fun, and then I got better, and progression happened. And
Yeah.
I feel like that helps with a lot of life as well. Just that resilience of getting back up when shit things happen.
Yeah, exactly. All right, we're coming to the end of the show here. I just want to shout out to the comment section. If there's any last questions you guys want to be throwing out there, is there something we should have asked that we didn't, says Suki? Now's the time to throw it up in that comment section. We're going to wait for a few of those to flow in. But It's been a great conversation. I feel like a couple good highlights is just kind of like, the racing scene and how that's kind of developing now. That's a lot more part of the conversation. I feel like this kind of live show would have had a little bit of a different topic, 3, 4 years ago, and nobody was talking about racing then. There really wasn't an industry for it, right?
Yeah, it's come a long way very quickly, and I hope it continues to grow.
Yeah,
Anyone with kids, get your kids involved. That's the future.
yeah. I just feel like it's very exciting. It's a potential that I saw back like in early 2020, and I made a post on my Instagram early 2020 saying like, we're gonna race. And now it's kind of, when it comes to the most exciting part of e-skate, it's kind of these races now. And a lot of e-skate has just become this very enjoyable, casual kind of riding and stuff like that. So
Mm.
it's fun to see that. Question from Suki is, Karen, what would you tell your e-skate newbie yourself?
You're about to go deep. It's gonna
Deeper
take
than
over
you
your
think?
life. Yeah. From that random conversation with buddy Hayden when we were bored over pandemic to suddenly traveling the world and racing e-skates, it definitely changed my life a little bit. So
Here's a great question from Ian. Did you find your e-skate risk assessment change as you started racing faster and faster, as in risk tolerance?
not particularly. I've always had a weird thing for. I have a problem with I'm not scared of speed, so I have to be careful with it. Like I'll happily rep my motorbike down accidentally speeding constantly. So I do consciously make sure that I am aware of what I'm doing, and that does hold me back a little bit, is that I'm aware of the speed I'm doing now. I wouldn't say my risk assessment has changed. It's just I've gotten older and it takes longer to recover. So when I do hurt myself now, it's like, oh god, I'm gonna have to wait 3 weeks before I can even ride again, sort of thing. So that
Yeah.
that changed my risk assessment more of being like, do I want to crash and have to wait 3 weeks to be able to ride again? Probably not.
Yeah, and that's a great thing on screen now. It's obviously easier said than done, but you can get it, but you get a job that supports your lifestyle, right? So like
Yeah.
with you, you're not physically required to be like me walking up
No, I have
house
to.
to house to house to house, and but you need your
Yeah, I
hands.
need my
So
hands
like,
and
so
yeah.
say you get like a bad thing that happens to your calf or something like that, like you could still work, you got your hands. So it supports your lifestyle in a bit where you can go out and you can have a little bit of fun.
The
Where
the
me,
big
I'm playing a
thing
very risky game,
the
right?
big thing I have to be careful of is head injuries because I use my brain a lot for my work. So
Well, yeah, everyone does.
it's
That's
yeah,
always a
I've
big thing, right?
had a scary accident with Brett and a couple of other friends at Amped last year where I knocked myself out, but I wasn't actually physically out. I was just mentally not there, and no one apart from Brett really realized that something was wrong. And then I suddenly came to, and I didn't remember anything that happened for the last 15 minutes. But I wasn't physically
Yeah,
out, and that was a big like, oh, that's a mental issue that could happen if I smack my head too hard. So I always wear a helmet. I'm always full face helmet. Uh,
it's a scary thing, and
DOT,
that
yeah,
and
it's
that
one thing I have to be
happened,
careful of.
and that happened in like a full face helmet.
Yeah.
So
I
it can
God
happen,
forbid what
and
would have happened if I wasn't wearing that helmet. Like I'd probably be dead. So
yeah. So I mean, it's just a constant reminder that like, sure, wear your gear and be safe and all these things, but at the end of the day, like what we're doing, and it's inevitably really dangerous. And you have to take those precautions. And as long as you're safe and you're not pushing above your limits and stuff like that, it can be a very, very, very enjoyable thing to do.
yeah.
But you just have to realize that what you're getting into.
And
Karen,
don't
have you
don't feel like you have to be this person that like pushes to the extreme all the time and is competing in pro for it to be enjoyable. Like I'm very happy in the rookie and novice leagues. It's great fun. Enjoy it
Yeah,
for what it is and where you are. And if you want to progress, go for it. But you don't have to.
yeah. One of our last couple of questions is, have you insured your hands?
Hell no. I have Canadian health insurance or Canadian healthcare, and that's about it.
Yeah, so I think it's worth saying that Karen is officially a Canadian citizen as well
Yeah.
as a citizen of the UK. So, congratulations, welcome to Canada.
Thank you.
I'm happy you're enjoying your stay. And we may have one more question before the end of the show, but you know what? Like you like Canada, you like staying here, and riding around here has been enjoyable enough for you to stick around and kind of find a way. Like, I'm going to toot your horn a little bit. You've worked your way into a little bit of a leadership role with Toronto E-Riders, really helping develop kind of the visual side of things and our image on Instagram and things like that. So just shout out to kazperstan here. She's really working hard in the community, just on things that, she wants to put her heart in. So she won't go out there, being as crazy as I am, trying to get involved in a million things. But when she decides to do something back home, she does it well. So keep an eye out for any, ride posters and stuff that come out of Toronto, or any content, any videos, any of the marshalling or parades that we're a part of, and that type of stuff. She really does a great job putting all that together. And it's great to talk to you like you're a stranger, because
Yeah.
we're best friends and we hang out literally every day in Toronto. But we don't really have these in-depth conversations like this, right?
Yeah. Only late night calls, and that's about it.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's nice to chat about a few things, and maybe if it comes down to it again, and I'm on and you're hosting or whatever it is back, we could delve in a little bit more on some of these things too, and a little bit more of that dynamics of riding, like exit throttle control, and lines, and using a draggy and race box, and being able to dissect your intro to speed sessions and stuff. So there's always fun things to talk about when it comes to e-skate. And these are things that we're just discovering now with our new devices and intro to speed sessions. And shout out to Mario and Rux and all those people who made that a reality, right? So
Yeah. Started it
yes.
all.
And Lou popped into chat saying she watches over everyone on group rides. Yes, let's not forget that. She does carry a secret little medic bag that she hopes she never has to use, but she has to use it more than she usually wants
I
to every year.
mostly use it on myself, let's be real, but
Yeah. So we got a great community. A lot of them are popping in chat here too. So they've made us who we are, and we continue to do what we want to do with them as well. So it's been fun. Is there any other last questions you think are going to pop up here? Any last little comments from Suki as well? I just want to shout out Suki's been working hard, popping up those comments on the screen there, and just making this show a reality. I just love when I see a new comment or something pop up, and a new topic coming along. Suki does a really great job of that. So shout out to Suki for all making this a reality. Is there any last comments or last questions that you may have, Karen?
nothing I can think of. Just thank you for having me, and it's been a pleasure.
Great. So, yeah, it's been great to chat with you, and we look forward to the rest of the season. As per usual, we want everyone to stay safe, wear all your gear, know that anything's possible, but also you can have some great experiences out there riding your board out there this year. So
If
don't
you
forget
go
about
to ride without your helmet, just imagine my face really angrily telling you to put your helmet on. So.
yes. You'll see Karen's face and a little thing that says "helmet, please." But yeah, make sure that you subscribe. I believe that there's a little bit of a push to get this put on YouTube. It's getting a lot more popularity, the ESK8 UK Live shows. So make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. Find them over on Facebook too. You can find a lot of archived content over there. Everything that's made this ESK8 UK Live broadcast, everything that it is. So drop a like, subscribe, and show all that love back. Very frequently these shows happen. So if you like this, it was an enjoyable experience, you thought it was a great time, pop back next time you see it, hit that little bell notification, they'll tell you when it's going to happen. So thank you to everyone. Thank you to Suki. Thank you to kazperstan. You can find her at kazperstan on Instagram, KazPerstan, kazperstan, and Toronto E-Riders on Instagram as well. So love chatting with you, Karen. Thank you so much for being here today and for delving in on your life a little bit.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me. See you guys later.
Right. And we'll see you guys next time. Thank you for being here on the ESK UK Live Show.